Welcome everyone, our esteemed panelists, our enthusiastic audience, our benevolent organizers and partners. Thank you all for joining us on UINCEPT's second session of the much awaited annual festival IXI Summit 2021 partnered with Stride Ahead. Joining with us, our esteemed panelist, Mr. Arnav Gupta, lead engineer at Target and co-founder and CTO of Coding Bloks. If he can ask Arnav to introduce himself. Then we have Mr. Gaurav Gupta, CEO and business coach at XYPNOTECH. Ms. Vaishnavi Reddy, founder of OriginUX Studio, Bangalore. So, yeah, I would like Arnav to introduce himself. Yeah.
Hi. So I'll just keep it really short.
Sure.
I have been running a Edtech startup called Coding Bloks for the last 5 years, where we teach people web development, app development, and so on things. And we have till now had more than 50,000 students till now.
Great. Gaurav, if you can introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Gaurav Gupta. I'm the CEO of XYPNOTECH. We are a startup in the stealth mode right now, still focusing on the Edtech space itself. And I'm also a business coach consulting with a lot of startups across India. Also happen to be an author and a TedX speaker. That's a little bit about me. Excited to be here today.
And yeah, hi Vaishnavi. We all would like to know.
Hi, thanks for having me. So I'm the founder of OriginUX Studio based in Bangalore. So we are, OriginUX is a digital design firm based out of Bangalore, where our core forte is customer experience and user experience. So we work with over 300 plus startups and companies so far, and that's where our heart lies at.
Great. So everyone, I am your moderator, Piyush Gupta, founder of Stride Ahead. It's a community-driven career incubator, providing personalized 360-degree career mentorship and upskilling opportunities for millennials. I'm also co-founder of VerySmart.ai, an identity blockchain platform to automate and standardize KYC and compliance process across verticals. So as the panel moderator, I'll be guiding us through this process. We have a short period of time, so we are going to break this into two distinct segments, 50 minutes of panel discussion, followed by 10 minutes of audience Q&A. I hope this is fine with everyone. So shall we start? Yeah. So the topic of our discussion is Edtech business on creating personalized learning path. And we are gathered here because we are all concerned about the future of education and to discuss how the edtech industry can help provide mentorship to students and give them a holistic learning experience. This will effectively bridge the gap between learning and applying in that industry. So for the edtech innovators and entrepreneurs watching this panel discussion, I think this is a gold mine for all the know-how about funds, scaling, and technology you need to succeed and to provide better experience to the students. So my first question, so without wasting any further time, I'll start with Vaishnavi. So Vaishnavi, I mean, through user experience, how can today's internet tech-savvy edtech companies make the ecosystem usable, relevant, and exciting for its users?
Okay, so in today's world, I think which you're referring to as the post-COVID world, and just taking a step back, I feel in the pre-COVID time until last year, edtech per se or education per se in itself was actually very democratized, right? So we had so many options to go ahead and learn. So we had your basic education givers such as the school and institutions, and anything beyond that which was self-paced or extracurricular or aggregated form, you had the primary text-based goes into that segment of learning. But with post-COVID, what's happened is even the basic form of education has now transformed into online, where your K to K-12 kind of education also has become very user experience driven. And many institutions, and as we see the trends, it's very difficult for students to sit through long days in front of the computers, etc. Right? And there have been a lot more interventions where the parents' time is also included, and the real kind of nurturing is not happening through the digital mediums as we see. Now, fast forward post-COVID, I think the way these tech companies or education companies rather can be bucketed, if I may call so, are there's one segment which is the internet companies which are developing their proprietary methods of LMS or content delivery and then giving it away as a SaaS solution. Which the second bucket of people, which are the institutions or the tutors, adapting that and distributing and delivering content and teaching methodologies out of it. And the third type is the internet companies which are actually found a gap, developing their own content and delivering it through their own platforms. And the traditional set of education imparting companies, if I may say so, are your aggregator type, your very niche platforms which are either only skill assessment and upskilling, or they are only assessment platforms. So these are some of the niche companies, right? So if you really see the user experience and the role of what optimization they need to do for their particular users to make this entire ecosystem work in sync with each other, I would segregate it into three aspects. One would be definitely relatability and literally making it more relevant and exciting to people. Then usability, which becomes the very basic. And the third one is responsibility. Now, the first one, usability, is, now that users are across Tier 1, Tier 2 and beyond, with increase of smartphones and internet connectivity, there's a little bit amount of tech literacy also that has come into picture. So a majority of users this time, with 2020 going forward, would have been the first time that they're using such online education platforms or meeting platforms as such. So having the product extremely usable with the proper system check and not too confusing, especially for the large amount of new people who have adopted to this technology, becomes a very, very key factor. Then once you've adopted these people onto your platform, the way they are able to relate to your platform becomes very, very important. So, if you showcase a very, very sophisticated tool, or if you showcase a very, very sophisticated way of using your tool, there are bound to be drop-offs. So that is why even if you see very latest tools such as Microsoft Teams or Zoom, which has really accelerated this space or have been a major enabler in this space, have also started personalizing the modes in which they are able to communicate, which means as simple as the background features or seating arrangement kind of backgrounds where you still feel that you're sitting next to each other while attending a conference. So these are small little clues in which you can see that personalization happens. Now, this is the tech side of it. Now, for companies who say that, we are not really into tech part of it, but it is most that our domain and our control lies in terms of the content that we deliver. So user experience is not just about click and how you arrive and how you open the screen, how you work with the platform. It's also about what's the content you put out there. So in terms of making it more relevant, companies can opt in for things like vernacularity in terms of localizing the content, localizing the method of delivery, etc. Right? So I think one trend that is also picked up is in a lot of LMS that we are seeing right now is probably mimicking the entire physical way of learning into the online platform. So we are looking at a lot of LMS which are now revamping and upgrading their tech stack to have a more cohesive an institution kind of a feel within the platform. Right? So that is more about the relevancy and excitement factor. And the second one that I really want to put through is the responsibility factor when it comes to the internet companies who are now offering edtech platforms. So when we really divide the audience into two parts, one being the young audience, which is your pre to even up to K10 or K8. Right. And then there's the second audience, which is more matured audience who are graduates looking for upskilling and freelance. I mean, the other set of self-paced learning cycles. So in a way, I feel that the edtech companies who are having young audiences, they have to have a very responsibility quotient in their user experience and the entire customer journey. Because as a founder myself, I understand that there are metrics that are directly responsible or directly input ROI, which means your increased time that you spend on the platform, the increased stickiness that you show your investor as a metric and all of that. But I think somewhere in between these two, the companies do have to take a responsible role of either parental controls or timed out sessions where the kids don't really spend too much of time, where we literally introduce people to tech literacy and convert them into action. So these are some of the points that I would feel that tech companies can sooner or later adapt, especially in the post-COVID era.
Right. So Arnav, what is your take? But I know that coding post-pandemic has grown a lot in terms of online education.
Right. So, talking about personalization here, I think it is very important to be able to deliver content. So, when we talk about obviously this post-pandemic world where people are learning from their homes, there is obviously a distinct disadvantage compared to when people are doing it in a classroom. I have taught in classrooms a lot, and your teacher looks at your face and they see that you're confused, and then they come to your desk and they're like, do you need help with that? So to be able to leverage technology, to be able to fill that gap when people are on a, say, Zoom lecture, not everybody is going to be having their side of their camera on. Even if they have on a Zoom lecture, like probably when I'm teaching, I'm focusing on my slides and not on the faces of the students there. So in those kind of cases, yes, the ability to, so it is not solved in the same way, and that's very important to understand that the teacher looking at somebody's face and understanding that they're confused, it's not going to be like the online education will not exactly solve it in the same way. It will be able to leverage it using different ways, providing assessments with which the system can understand that the person is not able to understand a particular problem, help them with additional supporting learning material which can help them grow. So do a SWOT analysis, not just at an overall level, but at every topic by topic you are teaching, you do SWOT analysis at different places during the education cycle. So maybe you have a program of say 20 sessions, 20 lectures, something like that. Mm-hmm. First 2-3 sessions have been done, 5 topics have been taught. You do a SWOT analysis at that point. You find out, okay, in this batch or cohort of 20-30 people, these people were able to do topic A well, these people are not able to do topic B well, and then give the intervention there where you have something like maybe teaching assistants, or you have some automated tools like extra learning material for the people for a particular topic in which they are not able to learn much. So you give that intervention to them at that point. So that is the incremental personalization. I think, there is a bigger vision of personalization that people in our domain, we visualize it, very super AI focused, like some, cyberpunk 2077 level of personalization that, my learning journey would be completely different from the next person's learning journey. The first lecture I would be seeing is different from the next person. That is obviously maybe a moonshot into 10-15 years into the future. It would be very different for every person. But right now it has to be very incremental in nature. You lay down a curriculum for everybody, and then you give interventions to different people at different places where they have their weaknesses, where they have their opportunities, where they face challenges, and so on.
Right. So like Gaurav, you have been into the HR profession for past 20 years also. So you are dealing with a lot of employees, lot of resources, and you are training them. So when it comes to personalization, and so what do you think, offline versus online? There's a lot of challenges, and there's a lot of user experience that needs to come into the place. So what is your take on this thing? How we can improve this thing?
Piyush, I would say one thing which has come as a boon to all of us is this pandemic. Because of the pandemic, a lot of people, a lot of organizations, in fact, the world at large, are so open to looking at online learning modules. As you rightly mentioned, in 20 years of my career, very little emphasis was given on online learning in the past. It was all classroom-led programs. Every program had to be physical training, majority of the time, 80% or to 90%. And it was only a very small fraction, 10 to 20%, where we were having online learning. Now it is a blended learning. Though it is a boon, but blended learning and creating individual paths is definitely possible with technology. It also has its own limitations, especially if I talk from a Edtech company perspective. There are a lot of issues which are currently surfacing. So, for example, the space is so crowded. There are too many platforms to choose from. As an organization or as an individual, it becomes so difficult for me. So the first challenge we edutech companies have is how do you brand yourself differently? How do you create that brand awareness, especially in not just in corporates but also in tier 2, tier 3 cities. Second thing is the technical knowledge of the end user. That itself, especially when we talk about a tier 2, tier 3 kind of cities, many users are not that curious that they would really go ahead and explore a complex platform. So, like Vaishnavi was earlier talking about Teams, Microsoft Teams. I personally find Zoom to be a more interactive and more easy to use platform versus Teams, Microsoft Teams. So, every tech company has to understand that the ease of using of technology is the key to your success. Third thing which I've seen is a lot of issues around data privacy. Is my data secure? Is my students' data secure? Is my employee data secure? So companies have to take care of that challenge as well. They have to address that challenge. Coming to UI UX, lot of edtech companies, a lot of these platforms, they have UI UX is not up to that mark. So UI UX is not up to the mark. Then the retention, the stickiness of your content, and even comprehension is really impacted. Also, I remember long ago I did a nationwide project for Airtel, and this was Airtel Certified Sales Professional project, where we first time were face to face with the challenge of teaching in vernacular languages. So Airtel that time had 28 circles, and we had to customize the learning which was developed in English to all the local languages. So we had to do it in Bengali, in Assamese, in Tamil, in Telugu. That kind of capability even today edtech companies need to have, because if in India especially, vernacular is the preferred medium of learning. So if the company has that capability of customizing and getting the content done in the local language, that would be really, really important. And I would also say one important challenge is that the ideologies of edtech company versus the academic world, they themselves are very different. Edtech startup would focus more on agility, on funds, on getting revenues, versus where academics want results. So if the companies focus on getting the results and quality-oriented teaching, that would be a key to success.
Right.
And from a financial perspective, I would say lack of getting the funding, proper funding, because it's too overcrowded right now. Even investors would look at some basic things like your unit economics, your growth, and the future prospects. And does a real market exist? And how capable is your sales team? How productive are you? Are you ready to scale up? So that is a big, big challenge. And also deciding on the business model and the revenue model from a edtech company perspective. So these would be the logistics and financial challenges which, especially in this space, are facing. And they should have a proper strategy to handle these.
Great. So, like coming back to Arnav only, since Arnav said that there's a lot of scope of personalization using technology, like we can use AI a lot when it comes to personalization. So, in the future, Arnav, do you think that AI can take over all the aspects of education, like exams, teaching, course structuring, languages, predicting students' need based on evaluation? Can we create a Jarvis for an Iron Man?
Okay, interesting question. I think it is good to have a vision and a dream of something like that, where like a automated learning assistant can take you through that journey. have a long-term vision around that. But as we today build systems, and as we today like EdTech has a lot of spotlight on it today right now because of the pandemic and people going online and everything. And suddenly there is a lot of money that has come into this domain. There's a lot of good technological people who have come onto this domain, and they're trying to solve for things which obviously something like say Google Classroom has existed for 7-8 years, but in this last 1 year, Google Classroom has seen a lot of innovation happen within that platform because it's getting scaled to, like I think Delhi government is using it in all schools right now. They did sign a contract. So now that when that is happening, today when we build, we have to look at, the way automation and AI has worked at some of the biggest companies, like say you take Amazon or Microsoft, these kind of companies. When you look at something like Google comes up on stage and they show you that somebody is ordering restaurant booking, they're doing AI is doing the booking for you completely, right? But that has not happened overnight. That has happened over a lot of investment into how the booking process works, how understanding how people talk, the NLP of it, right? So similar investment we need to do into education today as well, and look at repetitive tasks that the educators are doing and try to reduce that using automation and keep on building upon it incrementally. So, for example, one of the biggest things that we have been able to leverage at Coding Blocks is that assessment. So obviously assessment of something like people are writing code and then you have to assess that. So that sort of existed even before we started creating Coding Blocks. But then if somebody is creating an entire application, how can you assess that? Whether the screens are correct or not, the buttons are working or not, right? If somebody is creating a complete backend system, so how to assess that the APIs are fine or not. Then at a deeper level, is the code correctly written by the person who is writing that software? Is the code correctly written? Is it nicely formatted? All that stuff. Right. Similar things would happen in other domain as well. So, when you are, say, looking at somebody is writing subjective answers to a history question. So whether the answer is correct or not, whether the way of writing the answer, whether you have created the correct points or not, whether you have started with the introduction, ended with the conclusion properly or not. So assessment is something. Now, assessment, if you tell your educators that, assessment we can automate, you see how happy such educators would be, because so much time they suddenly find free to create more new content, research on new things that they can do. So you take one little vertical like assessment, you automate that, and then as the data starts pouring in, as more assessments you do with the system, the assessment system also improves over time, right? And it's both sides feedback. So the data of the assessments that we're doing, that also helps it improve. And there is supervised learning involved with the educator themselves. So they see that the system has assessed somebody in the wrong way. They can give feedback and improve that system. So the system improves in that case, right? Similarly, let's say if somebody, goes through a particular topic they have learned. So there could be learning content, there could be videos, could document something. Then there could be assessment, like there's a quiz or there is some, project submission or something. Now, based on doing that, can we suggest what is the next thing that this person should learn? Based on if they found it difficult to learn, based on whether they found it easy to learn, based on how well they did in the assessment, what should be the next topic they have learned? Now you build that up over 3-4 topics. Now you know that if somebody has done topic A and B and C, then after that you can suggest them D. But if somebody has done A and then after that they have gone on to do maybe topic E and F, then maybe you have to suggest topic G to them, right? So what should be your next step that gets built? So right now we have to put a lot of focus into these incremental gaps, see where there's a lot of repetitive work being done by the educators, by the teaching assistants, by your support staff in the education system, and automate them so that their time gets freed up so they can work on more content and think of more new ideas.
Right. So I totally agree with you. So what I can sense out of it, from this conversation is that we need specialized product managers who can take some reference from subject matter experts, who can take reference from technical heads, who can take reference from UI UX designers also, right? And can make a system which can help us in achieving that end goal of assessing a student, whether that student is introvert, extrovert, solving the problems on time or not. To analyze this thing and to automate this thing, that is the current challenge that we need to solve, right? Before making a totally automated solution.
Right.
So I guess we all agree here that this is the need of the hour. But for the sales side, I mean, we have a lot of customers in India, and we have different type of customers. I mean, I can count 10 different type of customers when it comes to EdTech. So do you think that we can use AI to make interactive chatbots? We can also use it to study customer behavior. And what are the near future possibilities when it comes to sales? Right, and how we can personalize the product which we want to sell for a student. So what's your take, Arnav, in this thing?
So that interesting question here. I think chatbots obviously are very helpful. So, for example, we have a program picker that we have built. So you come and you answer some questions. What things that what do you want to become in life, and after those answers, it shows you the products that you can basically purchase. So this courses you can do to become that. Now that is something if you look at today, go to YouTube. There are 100 YouTubers creating this content called roadmaps. Like that's something that's like kind of hotcakes in selling. Everybody makes roadmaps these days. How to become this, and then starting from XYZ point. So, are you in college right now? Do you want to become a UI designer? Okay, this is the things you have to do. Now, at the end of the day, as a student, you go YouTube. How many such roadmaps will you see? And then it's the road is kind of like a graph. It's like a mesh. It's not a straight road. It depends where you're starting from, what already things you know, and what you really want to achieve. So based on that, you need a path. Now, that path is very important for the selling part, right? So when you talk about education and usually like people in the education industry, EdTech, they don't kind of speak very vocally about selling, but selling is obviously important. Like you have created an educational product, and if you can't sell it to people, then who would come and get educated, right? So selling is kind of a very taboo thing. Okay, if you're doing it for teaching, you're not supposed to sell. But this is basically what is selling. So telling people that what exactly do you need to learn to be able to achieve things. Because if you look at the psyche of the customer, so one thing that's common for the psyche of the customer is that they have a goal in life. They want to do something, whether it's like get a job, whether it's a certain profession that they want to get into, whether it's a entrance that they're trying, it's a test prep that they're doing, so they want to give NEET or JEE or CAT or whatever. So they would have like an abstract goal in their mind. If they don't have, then you have to ask some questions to find out what goal it is that they do have in their life. And the second thing which is important is to be able to assess at what point they are starting. This is something that you need to be able to ask them very pointed questions. AI can help here, automation can help here, create a framework where you ask them questions. Okay, you are starting from here and you have to reach here. And what's the possible line between these 2 points? And that is where your selling happens. That, okay, we have a product which can help you learn this particular skill that needs to go from here to here. So I think that is where personalization is also very important. You create very nice UX-driven flows inside your website, or you create a chatbot which can actually ask the people the question and find out where point A is and where point B is, so that the line can be drawn and the product can be sold.
So Vaishnavi, as per your experience, what do you think? How like chatbots has helped your clients, or maybe you think how it can help people in EdTech industry? Vaishnavi, your voice is not audible.
You're on mute, I think.
So in terms of chatbots and what Arnav is giving us a flavor of the AI and chatbots are definitely, see, the technology, there is no limit to technology, right? You can do whatever, you can dream of anything and, at least kickstart a process of making it happen. But more from an implementable solutions, what do really companies want today? And I keep going back to this metric of a maturity cycle or a maturity curve, if we may call so, of both the product and the platform versus the company or the team that is driving that, right? And also this should also resonate with the right market need. And so as Gaurav earlier told, that only when these three come together, you can even implement things, right? So for example, I would like to touch a little bit about how empathy can work in UX, right? So if you see initially institutions, education in itself, starting from Ivy League colleges to, the prestigious colleges to going down further to school education, etc. Somehow it was very aspirational for a lot of people, right? That's how initially from there it trickled down to education becoming more accessible, and then in today's world it's completely democratized, right? Now even we see the power in global houses of education giving you subscription based distant learning that is also becoming available online, etc. But something that I feel more than chatbots, I think in the way in which we are really accelerating and depending and really wanting AI to become a part of our everyday lives. On a very lighter note, I feel another 15, 20 years down the lane, instead of calling it this digital experience, I think we'll all be running after human experience. That we'll be really craving for, can somebody really come and help me on face-to-face? It's just becoming too much machine right now, right? So, so I think somewhere down the line, a good bridge between these two is going to become empathy. So, for example, chatbots, yes, definitely they cut out the noise. They help users becoming very linear in terms of what they want, interact with the system against what is the single point of contact instead of becoming too overwhelmed with everything that they have to offer. And it also helps, like Arnav was telling, in teaching or edutech, selling is a taboo, right? You can't really sell because it's a trickle-down version of a vocalized feeling that you have to give. But it also that way helps the user really take through a journey and complete her conversion. I agree to all of that. But I'll take this platform to, introduce one point of empathy that Edtech companies, at least the ones that they are scaling, are still seeing personalization of pricing module as either a part of a discounted sale or like a part of a CSR. I think they should really bring the whole idea of scholarship that exists today, in the physical world. If they are able to bring that online also, because see, with the penetration of smartphone, internet, etc., you've really gotten into the markets. You probably, the companies have acquired a great market share of tier 1, great, then level down tier 2, tier 3. But beyond that, what happens, right? So if you are able to really bring in a pricing module that probably could, with the help of AI, be able to understand that certain demographics of students are really, it's a part of responsible UX or customer experience, right? Be able to change and show the pricing to a certain extent or a way for a scholarship, which I see in a lot of edtech companies right now. Definitely the very, very well-funded and, the unicorns can afford it. Again, they may term it as scholarship, but I'm not sure if it's a part of the CSR. But I think it should become a very real way of working. That should become so normal that it's not considered as a very novel gesture anymore. So just to probably circle back on the chatbots and AI, my take on it is definitely it helps cut out the noise, but the entire system and afterflow of what happens after chatbots assistant is still, I think we will need a little bit of human intervention to be able to still remain humans at the end of the day. So that's my process.
So, I guess most of us participants, they are from early stage edtech ventures, right? So let us help them. And Gaurav, this question is for you. What are the logistical and financial challenges for early stage edtech startups? Because see, technology can take you from this place to this place, right? But we have to start from somewhere and we need to scale from that place. So what challenges edtech startup needs to solve?
Right. So see, the biggest challenge I would say in terms of logistics, the first thing, one is the underscore of all of it is you need to understand how your potential target customers, how do they learn? What is their preferred methods of learning? And there's a lot of gap here. Companies fail because they use the one size fits all kind of approach, which doesn't serve them. Secondly, I would say some of the things which I highlighted earlier, there's a lot of infrastructural problems, especially if we go to tier 2, tier 3 cities. data connectivity and streaming of content itself is so broken at places. UI UX challenges, definitely the companies need to include UI UX challenge and invest a lot of money into the tech platform. And there comes the challenge of finding the right funding. And from a financial perspective, I think the focus of the organization should be to have a right to exist and a right to win. So by right to exist, I mean to say that you have a service, you're giving a service for which the customer exists. You have a decent size or you have decent penetration into that market. At the same time, your sales team is agile and they are very productive and you are ready to kind of grow. Only when you have these, then you have the right to exist and potential investor will look at you. And the right to win is that your team supports your vision. At the same time, you have a defensibility which is decent enough, not really. I'm not saying excellent, but decent enough. If you have these combinations, then you get funding also. But essentially, it is important that you cut your costs and you focus on unit economies and may have profitable unit economies, and the focus should be on growth.
Okay, got it. So Vaishnavi, if I have to ask you that how can an early stage edtech startups without much funding can still get their customer experience right?
Okay, so this is a very, very interesting question, and it's a very highly taboo question again, because there is this notion that user experience is something that is a good to have and not a necessity as important as a good working platform. Right? So first of all, I want to break that. See, UX is also an arm and a leg and a liver, if you may want it, of a product, of a heart. It is a very, very core and essential part of any product, right? But however, I think when we initially started off, we used to feel that this is something that a lot of companies are considering as a good to have factor. And over, I think at least in the last 5-6 years, we've seen that it has now become a must to have product, because we are able to see that change firsthand, because simply by going by the trends of what projects we receive and what that we receive. About, I think, 4-5 years back, the product used to be extremely functional, almost even out in the market, and they would have active users, and only after they even see the first dollar of revenue, they say, okay, now let's work on the UX, right? I'm not saying it is not wrong, but completely having UX ignored and then trying to plug it or layer it with a UX, sometimes it's like taking 2 steps backward. Fast forward to projects that we are working on very recently is that they are involving agencies like us, or they're talking about UX even before they come up with their MVP. So I think that in itself is a very good sign of people wanting to incorporate. But I still hear that a lot of companies are always dual-minded. Scenarios could be very different. Either they know that the UX is an extreme priority, but they might not know how much of money to be invested in it, how much of time should we invest in UX research or implementing the findings, etc., much before that we actually implement it into a production cycle. So at a very high level, I think there are 3 myths that you can debunk from the mindset and really adapt a few thought processes that I'll be happy to share. So the first one being, I think now that most of us are in the mindset that let's bring in user experience, it's not anymore, or it is even a customer experience with the entire gamut of it, right? Be something that is not thought through later. That is a good sign. The second thing is that I think design end experience, the user's experience, the customer experience, or the entire experience itself is something that a company should imbibe into the DNA of the company much ahead of its journey, right? So it should become a very core part of it. Now, you may not want to get into 10x intensity with it, but at least don't leave it like an afterthought, right? So at least have a room for that thinking. So, so also the third thing is that there is a common misconception that UX is expensive, but yeah, UX is expensive, or does it become too much of a trouble for me to wait for that kind of a time and then get into the implementation mode? So, talking in terms of the expense that a company will incur is not really, honestly, even about a fraction of the investment that you will need to develop the product, to kick off the go-to-market strategy, do the marketing. If you really take all your expenses, it's just going to be a quarter of the expense, or even lesser than that most of the times, right? So, but there are many methods in which you can make UX a very inexpensive affair, but still a very quality output, by employing and or changing role base. Because when you're talking about early stage startups, of course, you don't expect to have like a very typical or scattered teams. Most often teams are interplaying roles, right? So the marketing team can take care of some of the UX research. Companies can even start, like how they make business plans. You can always opt in for a session with any of UX researchers or design agencies, in order to help them create a UX roadmap that works along with the business plan. Because coming back to the maturity cycle, as I said, today's users are very sophisticated. They are using your Ubers to Netflix to Ola's whatnot. They might really look forward to such an experience even on your platform. But at the end of the day, even if you take a wish list of your users, there's only so much that as a company you can implement, right? So prioritizing what is feasible and viable from your end versus analyzing it with users' wish list, and thereby coming up with a roadmap, which is an equivalent to a business plan or a business roadmap, right? Product roadmap. I think if these three go in sync, early stage startup without like 100 times intensity of UX, even if they are at least, having this thought process imbibed into this culture of thinking, I think it will be a much better head start for them as a product in comparison to another company which is not probably thinking through this. And also, given that you are an early stage startup, and if you are looking forward to raise funds, and if you've already thought through, I'm sure that this is going to be a +1 for any of your, the further investment seeking opportunities that will come through. And if I may say, another commonly thought through question is it too late for me? So I've been an early stage startup for maybe 2 years, 3 years now. I have active users. Revenue is decent. Is it too much of work for me to change platforms or change the UI UX? It's never too late, because if the company is not investing in UI and UX, UI is also very subjective. But most importantly, the entire user experience, and if it is not in sync with the product market, I feel that by the time your production completely gets over, your
Hello?
Hello, Piyush?
Yeah, Vaishnavi. I don't
We
know.
all got disconnected.
Sorry, yeah. So as I was saying that if not UI so much, because it's very subjective, but at least the UX part of it, if a company does not really invest much time, by the time most of your, especially if the founder is very techy at heart or sales at heart, and not really focusing on the design or user experience part of it, by the time the product is really out, your market dynamics, who knows, it would have been changed, right? So your users would have become more sophisticated, or they would have been used to much more advanced features or user behaviors. So keeping a tab, it's never too late to change or relook at your UX. In fact, I would suggest that every company which is specially driven by users' daily activities, and they're extremely dependent on user behaviors, should be able to be dynamically assess whether their initial assessments and their KPIs are in line to what they are presently doing and in line to their markets. So I think that way, and definitely it is not very expensive. Definitely it's not too late to relook at UX. So for all the early stage companies, I would suggest that please keep reevaluating your UX consistently, at least every quarter, to be able to resonate how your users are behaving on your platform, and keep making incremental changes, because you obviously cannot become a very feature-heavy product in just a month. We get that, but the idea is to be very consistent and keep evaluating your users' behavior.
Thank you, Vaishnavi. So I guess we have a very limited time, and there are two important questions that Arnav, I would like to ask you. You said that a lot of content creators are creating a learning paths using YouTube or other channels, different mediums, and they are trying to create a learning path, like how you can become a UI designer, how you can become a coder, how you can become a front-end developer, full-stack developer. This creates a problem of content overload. This creates a problem of quality content, right? So, and this is the second, this is my take on user experience. It's very important that your content should be top notch and relevant as per the current year or the current, right, the market needs. How do we solve this problem? Because I think this doesn't need a technology shift. This is something that needs subject matter experts, quality subject matter experts. And students are confused these days. They go over Google and they type Python development course, and they find the SEO. They find all the links which has good SEO. They find all the links which are doing PPC, and they miss the quality content. How do we solve this thing?
Good question. So the thing is, in education, it is obviously it's about three things. I think one, which Vaishnavi obviously has told very nicely, is the UX. Then there is the content, and then there is the distribution. So it's these three verticals make towards building a content system. Now, so for example, the way we had been operating and we ran, so distribution is something we focused on much later. Also because we were bootstrapped and not funded, so building distribution often because you can't generate revenue out of creating distribution, but you need it to be able to sell your content. But creating good content and good UX, right? Just this, if you crack, then you can do your sales. You might not be able to sell to million people, but whoever, like, you talk to 10 people, 5 of them will come on board by just tracking content and UX very nicely. But then the challenge that you will come across is that somebody else who has better distribution than you, even if they have worse content or worse UX, they're gonna get the top of the funnel before you get it, right? So there is obviously, I feel, long-term play and a short-term play to it. The short-term play is, of course, you have to fight high distribution platforms with a little bit of distribution on your end as well, which means that you do the market research, understand the audience to whom you're delivering the content, and find out what really they want to know. What is like their entry point? Like, what do they search? What do they think of when they get into the domain? And obviously answer those questions and do some grassroots work, do some outreach. It's like pandemic time, so traveling and all is not possible, but we have done a lot of going to colleges, setting up meetups, at some conferences, and reaching out to people. So we do that. So obviously we'll have to work on distribution on that side. Now, that said, about the current challenge that exists right now about the noise. So the noise is a temporary arbitrage. The noise is happening because of a very simple thing, that the domain is right now overfunded. till 2019, education was underfunded. 2020, it has gotten overfunded. It happens when the money market sees a domain which has potential, they are gonna overfund it. Like there was a point when e-com was overfunded. There was a point when food tech was overfunded. There was a point when logistics was overfunded. But they have stabilized, right? Right now, it's like whether you're looking at food apps, whether you're looking at e-com apps, whether you're looking at taxi apps, there is no noise problem right now, because people who had their fundamentals in place. So, for example, taking Amazon for an example, where UI itself is not a very big focus. It's not like the coolest looking website or the nicest looking buttons, but the package comes to your door when you want it. If it's not good, it gets returned. So they're focused on those fundamentals. Like what at the end of the day does, I think there was this very nice letter by Jeff Bezos when he was stepping down, is that people start to yawn at those things which you have solved for the fundamentals. Now people just this is how e-com is supposed to do. So think of education in the same way, and great content should be something people yawn at. Now, anybody's content worse than you, people should not be okay to accept that. UX should be something that don't go form over function, go function over form. Whatever the results that people want, make sure that gets delivered fast. There is obviously that perception that I think Vaishnavi was saying, that people think hiring top-notch designers, making a very nice looking website, that sometimes might be costly. So the focus is not to make a website that looks nice. The thing is that when you start learning and when you end learning, that experience feels very seamless, and you don't get stuck on things. Your say assessment you submit and it takes 3 days to get assessed. Not like that. It gets instantly assessed. Content that you're searching should be very well done. Right now, search is broken because again, people focusing on distribution, making too much content. Searching is kind of broken. So focus on the long game on that. Right. Keep your good content and good UX in place. The noise will go away once the kind of dust settles down in this domain. Because right now, somebody creating content on YouTube, putting a link to some edtech platform's course, they are getting say 10,000 rupees to do that. So they will make 10 such videos. They will earn 1 lakh rupees. So that's a very temporary arbitrage. It's not going to exist forever. Right. So it's like, when Uber and Ola and everybody just started beginning, everybody thought that I will become a taxi driver. I will become the richest person in the world because, driving taxi pays 3 lakh, 4 lakh rupees, because that's the kind of incentives that they were giving to just, work on distribution.
That is a go-to-market strategy.
That's a go-to-market strategy. So right now, the over generation of content is a go-to-market strategy. A lot of free content brings the eyeball. It's a bit top of the funnel. But that will settle down, I believe. It's not something to be worried about. Just, hold on and focus on the UX and content. It will work out.
Right. So I have only 2 minutes for Gaurav, because then I'll start with Q&A for 5 minutes. So Gaurav, we discussed about this thing. So how do we balance between paid subscription mode and free trial mode? Because that is the chance where a good edtech startup can maybe show the world that they have a quality content, they have a quality model product for the user, right? So how much should we given a free trial? How much should we get till customer takes paid version? How it should work?
Right. So, see, the answer to this will depend upon what kind of model broadly are you kind of focusing on, what market you're focusing on, where you're positioning yourself. So, are you a K-12 model? Are you a test prep model? Are you a upskill, reskill, or more from a focusing on corporates kind of a model? It depends upon what model you are. And broadly, is your business B2B2B, C, or B2B or B2C? So depending upon that, you will have to again also think about what segments are you positioning yourself in. Are you a premium player like Upgrad, or are you in the mid segment and a B2B like Unacademy, or are you focusing on different demographics like Pariksha is one name I can think of. So the model will depend, the revenue model or the charging model will depend upon what you are positioning yourself as. Primarily, what I've seen is current focus is on the end user paying for your services. But if you can get an institution also to pay for it, so for example, a corporate pays for it, or a college or an institution pays for it, or a combo model of paying, I think that would really be sustainable and would also bring in more revenues. To answer your question of how much should be given free, I would say there are different models there as well. So there's a premium subscription model where you get your end users so addicted to your services by giving so much free content that they cannot go to anybody else. Then you ultimately make revenues out of that stream. But something around 10% could also be a place where they get addicted to, and it could also be 15 to 20%. So there's no fixed answer, but you have to see depending upon your service. And then there are models where you pay for services or charge for services, you charge per session. What really helps you charge a premium would be a success-based model. So if after using your services, the end result, maybe we say it's a placement for a fresher or a job upgradation or a promotion for somebody who's using those skills, that success-based model, when you can 100% guarantee success, would lead you to better charging of premium. You can charge more premium. So you have to look at your service, where you're positioning, what your end customer wants, what kind of results are you capable of giving, and then decide your model.
Right. And so, like Gaurav, people are in India. If I talk about India only, it's kind of a different worlds altogether. North India, South India, different regions. So, do you think there should be a different pricing models for different states, like for tier 4 and tier 1 states? Should it be a same pricing model? Because some people, they can't afford the education. They are from different social, different economical backgrounds. And I believe the end goal of
I think he might connected.
So I guess Gaurav has dropped out. So I'm in this call. So Vaishnavi and Arnav, we have 1 minute if you can answer regarding this question. So do you think that we have a different pricing model for different states or different countries, and how it will work?
I think earlier during the call I did mention that it is while on books on to say and to speak, it is something that is like a wish list. Definitely, definitely brand will be able to at least capture a lot of low-hanging opportunities if it is able to step a little bit down and be able to personalize its pricing model. But I am not sure of how much this sort of democratized approach is actually market-wise viable, right? Because we do not see this trend happen in any of the FMCG brands or country-wise, different countries, yes, but different regions internally within a country or a zone. I'm not sure. We don't see any price demarcations between tier 1, tier 2. So I really doubt, and I feel that if it is done, yes, because education is something that is a vitamin to a lot of people who will be able to become more stronger because of this, increase their exposure. So I'm not sure if this can be compared to any other trends or markets. But if it is done as a user, definitely it is a great boon. From an investor and a business perspective, I think it's up to them to be able to see how they structure it.
So, like, we are getting close to the end of our time together. So, I would like from each one of you, if you can give a takeaway for our audience. So, starting with Gaurav only. Gaurav, if you want to give some takeaways.
So my primary takeaway would be that you need to think through what you're focusing on. You have to understand the end user and end customer which you're targeting, and you have to be geared up accordingly and invest in your own system or your own platform accordingly so that you can be successful. The focus should be on generating profitable unit economies and growth.
Thank you. Arnav? Arnav, you are mute.
Sorry. So the last question I was answering, I think what I was saying there is probably my takeaway would be in this is again, this domain, getting very excited. Lots of people here, lots of funds also here, but focus on delivering good content, good UX, and make sure that you scale slowly. Don't try to scale very fast initially. Try to make sure that your first 10 people, first 100 people, they get the results that you want. Everything else will fall into place after that.
Right, great. Vaishnavi, yeah, we have 15 seconds only, so yeah.
So I think the only keyword for me as a takeaway is don't shy away from good user experience. Don't be overwhelmed. Don't feel like it's not for you. It's not meant for you. I think it is definitely something that see, at the end of the day, I'm a true I mean, for want of a better word, be very patriotic. It's time for us not to do it. We still look up only that Silicon Valley companies can have really good UX. I think if you can make in India, you can make design in India.
Thank you.
So please be very open to good design and good user experience.
Thank you. So, and as a moderator, I would like, this is my suggestion for any early stage edtech venture. See, we are into edtech space because somewhere we have faced those issues. Somewhere we thought that if we could get that kind of mentorship or that kind of learning when we were young, that we would be shortening our times then for the successful life that we see for ourselves. So do start with content. Make sure that your content is relevant for your target audience. Like Gaurav suggested, the template you should have. You should always have a template where you can measure what what you will provide. And like Vaishnavi suggested, that the user experience is very important. It's not only about the technology part, but the user experience as a learning experience that you want to provide. Like Arnav suggested, in early days, nobody is too much interested in only your website, but they are interested in the overall experience that you will provide from starting your program from end till the end of your program and how you are growing. So it's very important for startups to note down the specifics, to note down the metrics. And it's very important. So be a little bit analytical about whatever you are doing. And this is the only way that you will become a unicorn. That's what I feel. And we have our, so we are concluding today's session, and we stay tuned for our next session on the topic EdTech Business Challenge, high cost of customer acquisition. And I would like to thank Gaurav, Arnav, and Vaishnavi for this wonderful session, and we have learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
Thank you.